Thank you very much for the introduction. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, all. Hope you're enjoying the future of cybersecurity 2013. Right, so a little bit of a discussion, really, on how does modern malware look like? What does it change? You know, we talk about certain things have changed, certain things haven't. And let's just take a quick look at how we see the changes in the way that malware is actually delivered and executed into different areas of whatever network it is. The network is, and the question is irrelevant really in this case. So just an idea of a few, let's say, recent, relatively recent examples. They all have something in common, and it's, other than they got attacked, of course, that was the first thing. But the main thing is that you can see that the conduit for attacks these days is actually the application itself. And we'll talk about the different stages, but it's a mistake to, let's say, assume that people are looking for open front doors. That's not exactly how they're getting in these days. They're doing it in a different way. And obviously the goal is to actually get some kind of information. That's what all of these people wanted. So if you were a fan or do have a Sony PlayStation, I don't know, maybe someone here plays games at home or whatever, you might have had your information uploaded to the Sony website, might have thought it was okay, and obviously at a given point in time, your information or the information was breached and, let's say, shared in ways that you perhaps wouldn't have wanted. But this all happened, again, through certain stages, and we'll talk through how this normally looks like. But first of all, a bit of I guess, some myths about how does data breaches actually happen. They don't show up that well, actually, do they, these slides? But that is a data center. What we're looking at doing here is this traditional way of, let's put a ring of steel around our data center, and that way we're going to be secure. We've made sure that there's no gap in our walls anywhere around the circle, and in fact our data is sitting in the middle and it's highly secure. Do we try and bash in through this and directly attack the data center from the outside? That is not how these attacks happen. It is not some brute force attempt to smash down the walls of a data center. Why not? It's difficult. Security these days, no matter what kind of security it is, makes this extremely difficult. Also, highly accessible and visible to the people that are being attacked. So subterfuge here is extremely difficult. It is very hard, it's very simple to see what's happening and what's going on if you try and smash through a brick wall around the data center. And this makes this bit a bit of a thing of the past. I don't know, does anyone here get a security vulnerability scan from the outside of your network? Maybe a few people? The question is what is it looking for? And what does it normally bring up? The answer is typically most vulnerability scans from the outside looking in will tell you that you're not vulnerable. The fact is, it's relatively straightforward to configure a firewall to ensure, and security mechanisms to ensure that people from the outside can't easily breach through holes in your perimeter-based security. So it makes this kind of security a little bit more redundant. And so how is it that, in fact, the new attacker is looking to get in? They're not looking to bash in through the front door. They're looking to make sure as well that it's not easy to identify that you are even being attacked. They want to make sure that if they don't get to the right piece of information right away, how do they make sure they do find the right piece of information? And they need the time to be able to do that. So subterfuge and going below the radar is extremely important here. So the attacker no longer looks like this. The bald guy sat in his room with a claim to fame. Hey, today I hacked company ABC, and tells his mates, and everyone's really happy, round of applause, pat on the back, and things are looking really, really great. This isn't the motivation anymore. This isn't, you know, those days are kind of gone where there's script kiddies, for want of a better phrase, that are out there trying to attack just to get some kind of infamy. The new attacker looks more like this. It's a nation state, or it's a criminal organization. It's actually motivated by, guess what? Money, right? So there is either direct money involved. That means that they're looking to see if they can get some information, intellectual property, or they're in fact hacking into someone's network to then sell the fact that they are in someone's network to whoever might want to get into that network. So they may not directly make money out of it, they might do it indirectly. There's a whole business out there. But essentially this is just another business. It's all money motivated, or indeed it could be national crime, so nation state orientated. I don't know if you saw recently in the news, right? The whole of the Chinese attacks are coming from one room. I mean, they must be a bit more dispersed than that, but that's what they say. So, oops. If we look at these recent data breaches, we see that there's the first step. And the step one, and this is a five-stage process, step one is to bait the user. And the question is if you get emailed a PDF file, do you look at it and go, "Ooh, that looks suspicious, I'm not going to open that"? Most people, when they get emailed a PDF file, are going to open it. So, straight away I can email, maybe make an email look like it's come from someone within the business. This is how actually some of the attacks that I showed up earlier happened. So it looks like it's an email. In fact, what happened in one of the attacks, it was an email to the CEO about a hiring plan, and they accidentally, in quotes, copied in someone else in the IT department. The guy in the IT department goes, "Oh, look at that PDF. I shouldn't have that, but I'm going to take a quick sneaky peek anyway." And guess what? It was that person that was being targeted by the attack. They were the ones that were being targeted. They opened up the PDF, down came the next stage of the attack. So people are trusting in PDFs. Or maybe you might have heard of the fact that you can do this through spear phishing. So here's a picture of a monkey doing some spear phishing. Apparently it is that easy. So you can actually isolate and identify specific users and make sure that you target them. So you are looking for a specific user within a business that has the right access rights to the information that you ultimately want to get to. And you might get to these people through social engineering. It could be that you somehow connect to them on LinkedIn or through Facebook, or if indeed you still use MySpace, maybe we do see people still using it, then it could be through MySpace. But however it is, it's pretty straightforward to masquerade as someone somewhere in the business, get LinkedIn through different connections, second removed, and somehow find out information about you. Maybe you like golf. So we'll make sure that when we email you a PDF, it's going to be a PDF of the latest golf course, and it's going to tell you something about how great it is, or perhaps a new promotion going on. Or we find out that you like, I don't know, scuba diving, so we'll send you a PDF on the Great Barrier Reef or something like that that might be of interest to you. So through all this information, we can easily gain information about people and start to target our attacks and make sure they're relevant in terms of, will that user in fact click on the information, or even just hover over a link, right? Because you do not need to actually open something to get the second stage of the attack. So the second stage is exploit a vulnerability, right? So this is generally a zero-day vulnerability in a lot of the cases, and this means this is something in your machine. Could be an Adobe Reader as here, it could be something in your Internet Explorer or another browser, and essentially saying, okay, we found a vulnerability, we're going to exploit that, and that gives us a way into getting control of the machine. The third stage is we're going to download a backdoor now. So we've exploited the vulnerability in the machine, now we can download a backdoor, right? This is step 3 in a 5-stage process that pretty much happened in all the 4 companies that I showed you earlier. So this now means that we can actually create a backdoor into the business. So guess what? The perimeter around your data center has at no point been breached. The perimeter has not reported anything abnormal, doesn't see anything, doesn't show anything, nothing is showing up on the radar. Right, so step 4 now, I have my communication established, my back channel. So now I can talk back to command and control. I need to be able to talk back to command and control because that's where the clever stuff is, and that's also where I might want to send my information to that I have. So I'm a troop on the ground, I need to be able to get my information back to command and control to work out what are the next phases, what are the next stages I want to attack. And guess what the next stage is? The last stage is to actually explore and steal. Now I have the credentials, the rights of the person's machine that I've actually exploited the vulnerability on. If they're an IT admin or whatever, if they're HR or finance or whoever they are, I'll now have their rights into the system. What does the data center say? Nothing. Just says the person that was in HR accessed the HR directory and pulled the information to their machine. That's it. Does that not happen on a daily basis? Sure, why not? Is there any problems alerted to? Absolutely none. So now the attacker has got in. They haven't used anything that wasn't allowed already by the security, and they've got through all the defenses, and now they're acting and they're exploring the network as if they were an employee inside the network. So they have access to everything. And if they don't have access to the right information, they'll get it. They'll find another user to exploit. So this is how pretty much all the attacks happened. So you can see that the state of malware protection these days is in a pretty sorry state. It is very, very difficult to see that these are being stopped. And if you don't believe that, of course, then the companies that I showed you earlier, they invest in security, right? They're not short of money to invest in security. They definitely have what was to be thought of the state-of-the-art security. But still they were breached. And that is because the way that we're trying to attack modern-day malware isn't necessarily up to date. And we need to get back up to date with with the way that actually the malware is being propagated to us. So this is what we need to do. We need to have protection at every single stage. Because attacks are blended, there's no point targeting a small piece and saying, hey, I'm going to protect against that part of the attack. Because if you do that, you don't have any defense in depth. What you need to be able to do is say, I'm going to have protection at every single stage. So just in case they slip through one area, I'm going to make sure I get them in the next area. So what is the role of a next generation firewall in stopping these kind of attacks? And this is what I'm going to go through now and talk about how is it that you can actually do something about this, and what is the methods of which you should use to prevent it. So the first thing is we need to help prevent against the bait, the baiting of the user. And the simplest way to do that is control what applications are being used. By using a next generation firewall, you can actually say, I'm going to allow Facebook, but not the apps and the mail. So if people want to play Farmville at work, they can't. Mafia Wars, whatever your favorite Facebook game is. Or if I want to have a WebEx presentation, but I don't want to have the desktop sharing piece, because the desktop sharing could be with anyone, and I don't want that to happen. Or it could be that I want to allow people to read their private email at work, but I don't want them uploading or downloading files, because that could be a way of leaking information. In fact, it happened relatively recently that they said, oh, no, we're not going to allow emails to happen. So someone actually didn't send an email to leak data. They had a Gmail account. They uploaded a file to the Gmail account, which was a confidential file. They then gave their, as it happened, partner, wife, their login details to their Gmail account. She logged in from outside of the business into the Gmail account and logged in with the credentials. No email was sent anywhere. Downloaded a file that was uploaded to a draft email inside the Gmail solution. So straight away, no email was sent. Nothing was actually officially sent out of the business, although it was uploaded to an attachment to an email that was never sent. She just logged in with the same credentials and got the file. So maybe you want to actually start to control these applications and say which elements of it would you want to use so that it's harder to actually bait the user into clicking or adding or opening something that is not supposed to be there. The next thing is you need to be able to protect against, this is stage 2, remember, is the exploit. So we want to actually be able to say, well, okay, beyond patching machines and things like that, there are zero-day exploits. So we need to be able to have a very up-to-date, relevant research to identify how vulnerabilities are out there and make sure that you take an active part in that, in finding vulnerabilities in Microsoft, Adobe, Apple, depending on what it is, whatever your devices are, and protecting against those as best as we can. And the thing is that when you're talking about download protection, the response time is very important. Because malware, and I'll show you this in a bit, changes so fast that if you don't react quickly, you sneeze, you get a cold, right? So it's going to happen, it's going to be over and done with before you actually know it. So it's very, very important that we look at how fast can we respond to this. And just to give you some real-world examples of the way malware is looked at these days, in our analysis of the top 5 AV vendors, the zero-day malware, there is pretty much 0% coverage on the 0 day, right? No coverage at all. Day 1, there's roughly about 30 to 35 or so % coverage, and it goes down, and then we start to get better coverage. Sorry, it's about 70 or 60%, and it goes up to a maximum of about 65, 70% coverage. So at a given point in time, even at day 6, not all the malware companies are covering what is the malware that's out there. So this is why we need to look at the response time, because day 0, there's nothing. And automation is key, because if you're going to respond fast, you better make sure it's automated and it's not done by human beings sat behind a desk trying to decode something. It needs to be automated to be fast and to be delivered at a critical rate. And why is it that it's important that the response time is fast? This is our analysis. So it's quite difficult to see, but in the first hour, the spread of the number of infections is roughly on this graph around about 1,000. It then goes up to, let's say, 8,500 within 24 hours. So if we put that in percentage terms, the spread of malware, the infection rate, will be 95% saturated within the first 24 hours. So if you wait more than 24 hours, i.e. more than the 0 day, then you may as well not bother, because the malware has actually already infected everything it's going to infect already. You need to be able to respond quickly, otherwise you missed it already, and it's probably already changing into the next, say, iteration of whatever the malware is going to look like. So it's key to respond fast. The next thing is make sure that you are able to analyze any of this malware. You need to be able to give it the playbox, the sandbox, to run wild, to do everything that it wants to do. It might want to change registries, call home, dial out, go, establish the back channel. If you can't analyze everything it does, the whole 5 stages, then you can't write something to protect against it. You can't protect against all stages unless you know what it does. So give it a sandpit to play in, let it do what it wants to do, let it go for its life, and then at that point you can say, okay, we know it does this X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and we can write protections to protect against every single stage of what that does. That is the download stage, the phone home stage, the explore and steal stage. Whatever it's doing, we can then identify it and write protections against it. And of course, having this centrally rather than in each individual location means that, in fact, what you can do is have the power of centralization. So if we do this in isolation on everyone's network, that means everyone has to come across the same malware before they're protected, which is kind of crazy, right? Why don't we share it? So if we do it centrally, that means we only have to see it once, and then we can update everyone and tell everyone about this piece of malware and make sure it's protected absolutely everywhere. And the general assumption, and it's sometimes something that security people don't want to admit to, is that you have to work under the assumption they will get in. They will get in. And if you don't work under that assumption, then you're probably burying your head in the sand a little bit. So what we need to be able to do is, if they are going to get in, it turns out that actually it's relatively straightforward to understand how they're trying to communicate back out. So if we're going to work under the assumption they get in, let's make sure we don't let them get out. So we can do that by protecting against the back channel communication. So we can block any unknown traffic. I'll show you a pretty key statistic about how these applications normally communicate. Why not understand where they make DNS calls to? And of course, create different signatures for new command and control. So in exploring and stealing, segment your network. Don't allow your network to be flat. Just because they get to one area doesn't mean they should get to another area. So make sure that you can do that as well. And the backdoor protection, just so you know, is most of the traffic that is used is unknown. We identify more than 1,600 different applications. We always see malware using homemade, handcrafted, brand new applications. So if you don't have visibility into the applications, as I mentioned up front, then you don't know which ones are unknown. And last but not least, the role of a next generation firewall, as shown here in modern day malware, is critical. And of course, Gartner also agrees with us this is the way to do it, and puts us as clear leaders in the market. So thanks very much. It's a bit of a rush, but we are around all day, and we do have a live demo. If you want to come and see us later, I'll be there. I'm happy to do that and answer any questions you might not be able to get time to ask today. Okay, thank you.
James, thank you very much.